I'm James Brierton. That's Frank Strait. It is Wednesday, May the 29th, 2024, and welcome to a live edition of the Carolina Weather Group that we are calling a mishmash. Stay tuned, we'll explain why. I can't believe it's the last Wednesday night of May. By the time it's June, I'll still be thinking it's April, Frank. The year is just flying by. And we have a special mishmash edition of the Carolina Weather Group tonight. If for some reason you're not familiar with mishmash, I've Googled some synonyms. Hodgepodge, jumble. We're going to talk about tropical insights. Frank's going to explain to us why we can expect to see what is technically called an above average hurricane season. I'm just going to call it a very active hurricane season because that's the reality of it. We're going to be talking about Scotty Powell's experience at the Coca-Cola 600. It got rained out here at Charlotte Motor Speedway last weekend. We're going to be talking about an update on the OUTBRK storm chasing video game. And stay tuned at the very end because I know we have a lot of train fans on this show, myself included. There's a special train coming to Pinehurst, North Carolina for a limited time only. So stay tuned for that. We are streaming live this week. If you're with us on Facebook, YouTube, comment along, join the conversation. And we'll get started with the first question from Jeremy watching on YouTube tonight. When will we see the first tropical system of the year? Frank Strait, let's use that as a transition right into our very first topic. NOAA out last week with their above average hurricane season outlook. What is the Frank Strait hurricane season outlook?
Oh, you want me to give my personal outlook? I guess it's a good thing that it's a good thing that I've made one out that I haven't actually talked about a whole lot.
But this is breaking news to me.
Yeah. So my screen should be shared. So there it is. Compared to the others, several other entities that have put out a hurricane season forecast. South Carolina's Department of Public Safety asked me to put out a hurricane outlook or do one for them. And at the time, no one else had released theirs yet, so I had to kind of go on my own and decide what I should tell them. And I thought it would be an active season for several different reasons. And so I put together a forecast, and I thought that we would see 25 named storms, 13 hurricanes, 6 major hurricanes, accumulated cyclone energy of 200, and about a 20% chance that South Carolina sees a hurricane impact this season. So compare that to the averages: 14.4 named storms, 7.2 hurricanes, 3.2 major hurricanes, cumulative cyclone energy of 123. And usually about one every 8 years, South Carolina sees impact of some sort from a hurricane, either a landfall or hurricane conditions occurring from a near-miss storm. So all those figures that I have are above average and above what we saw last year. You can see Colorado State's forecast right next to mine. They're the best known entity, and they've shown the most skill at forecasting tropical cyclones.
Good at it.
Yep, they've been pretty good at it. Their first issuance from April 4th is for 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes, 5 majors, accumulated cyclone energy of 210. NOAA's forecast that they just put out on May 23rd, they're calling for a range of 17 to 25 named storms, 8 to 13 hurricanes, 4 to 7 major hurricanes, and a huge range in accumulated cyclone energy, but that's well above normal to somewhere among historic proportions by far. Weather Bell, that's where Joe Bastardi, my former co-worker at AccuWeather, is working now, so that's basically his forecast. They have a 25 to 30 range for named storms, 13 to 17 hurricanes, 5 to 9 majors, and accumulated cyclone energy of 200 to 240. Tropical storm risk, they're a forecasting service over in the United Kingdom. They're calling for 23 named storms. That's their most recent issuance. They put out their first outlook back in December. This is most recent, April 8th. 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes, 5 majors, accumulated cyclone energy of 217. My former employer, AccuWeather, their outlook is 20 to 25 named storms, 8 to 12 hurricanes, 4 to 7 majors, 175 to 225 for accumulated cyclone energy. That was put out the end of March. And then another private sector entity, Storm Geo, they have 21 named storms, 11 hurricanes, 5 majors, and that was put out on March 18th. I don't think they issued a ACE forecast. So all those are available from seasonalhurricanepredictions.org. And I can't remember who's in charge of that. I think that's a university in Spain, Barcelona, if I remember correctly, that puts that website together, so you can get all that information and more from their website. So that's where we go. And now to talk about the why a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll need to switch to a different thing. We'll start out with looking at the current water temperature anomalies for the Atlantic Basin. And you're looking at the whole basin here. This comes from WeatherBell. And you can see water temperatures are above average, way above average, over almost the entire Atlantic Basin. We have some cooler areas across the far North Atlantic, well outside the main development region, of course. Some areas off the North American coastline that are below average. Probably some upwelling happening there next to the Gulf Stream. Little area along the equator that's a little below average, but aside from that, almost the entire rest of the Atlantic Basin, including pretty much the entire main development region, is above average and well above average. And over toward the African coastline, that's near record territory. The waters are roughly where you would usually see them in early August, I think. So the waters are very warm, and that's the main reason why everyone's forecasting a far above normal season this year. Last year, the waters were about as warm as they are now across the Atlantic Basin. And as a result, we ended up with an above average season, despite the fact that that we had an El Nino going on last year, which tends to limit hurricane activity in the Atlantic Basin. Now, if I switch over to the Pacific, we can talk about ENSO and El Nino and La Nina a little bit. So let me find that in here.
There the first time I heard those words
East
on
Pacific.
this show from Shay Gibson, I was always like, what is he talking about? And after enough repetition, I'm starting to digest, like, oh, okay, these are very important factors in making these outlooks.
So ENSO, which stands for El Nino Southern Oscillation, that is the combination of El Nino, where the waters are warmer than average over the equatorial, tropical, eastern, and central Pacific, and La Nina, where the waters are cooler than average over that area, and a neutral phase where neither one of those is happening. So right now we're in a transition. We had El Nino going on last year, and we had El Nino going on through the winter with warmer than water average temperatures, but El Nino is fading fast. You can see away from the equator, we still have some above normal water temperatures out there, but close to the equator, the waters have turned colder than average, and in a lot of cases, well below average. So we're transitioning from an El Nino to a La Nina, and it's happening quickly now. And when you have a La Nina going on over the East Pacific, we tend to have less than average vertical shear over the Atlantic Basin, and that is a favorable factor for tropical cyclones and thus hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin. So that's one of the things. You also have a more unstable environment in general, more conducive to thunderstorms over the Atlantic during La Nina in the Pacific. So in that situation, you generally just seem to have more storms going. And those are the two primary reasons why I thought there would be an active season, and why most other forecasting entities have called for an active hurricane season. And there are other factors in play too. There's something called the quasi-biennial oscillation over the in the stratosphere over the equator that seems to have an effect, and that appears to be favorable, although there's some dispute in that these days. Also, there's statistical models the Colorado State University runs to use for their guidance, and they're all showing an above average year. As a matter of fact, they're going below what their computer models are saying. The ECMWF, the people who run the Euro model, also have a tropical cyclone forecast that they get from their models, and that's showing an above average season too. So it looks like everything is kind of falling into place for us to see an active hurricane season this year. Now, there are some potential limiting factors. First, La Nina might not get as strong as we think it will. So that may be one case.
They're thinking we'll have it by August, September-ish?
Right. Yeah, we're thinking that we'll be in a full-blown La Nina by August, September at the latest. There's also there's one other factor, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's has to do with the winds blowing across the Atlantic basin from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere. What do you call that? The Atlantic meridional mode? Something
north to south.
I was
going to say trade winds, but that's the wrong direction.
Right? Yeah, it's something different. It has to do with air flowing from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere, the other way around. But that's also a favorable factor this year, and we'll have to get Phil Klotzbach to explain.
Well, he is coming, and I was going to mention it because you mentioned
Right.
Colorado State University. He's coming on our show in June. We'll be just into the start of hurricane season, so smash that subscribe button. So you can hear from the man, the myth, the legend himself coming up in June.
Right.
Not that you're not a myth and a legend, Frank.
No, I'm a man.
But I heard from a good, reliable source that you are an expert on this topic because I got a text this week that was like, Frank's on NPR talking about the tropics. And I was like, great. Well, he's going to be on the podcast on Wednesday also talking about the tropics.
And lo and behold, here I am.
There you are. Got a couple questions while you were talking, if I may. So Wesley wants to know, does anyone track the accuracy of the outlooks? And I was able to find what appears to be a AMS published paper. There's a byline up here at the top from three folks at the at NOAA, at the Hurricane Center and the Climate Prediction Center. And it does have a very handy dandy little chart, if I can remember where I saw it. Percentage of correct outlooks. And you can see here that they overall are very accurate. I would put that in the ballpark of 60% or more. And so I think, overall, they're getting more and more accurate. And also, I think this is a good opportunity. You can see it's broken down here by named storms, hurricanes, and major hurricanes, right? So named storm would be like at least a tropical storm. That's when it gets a name. Then hurricanes, then major hurricanes, which are category 3 or stronger. But they also broke out ACE. Frank, we talked about this very briefly on the show last week when Scotty and I were out at Freedom Park here in Charlotte. But could you give us your definition of ACE for anyone who's not familiar?
Okay. ACE stands for accumulated cyclone energy. It is a measure of how much energy is expended by a tropical cyclone during its entire lifespan. And the energy units, there are units for ACE. We usually don't give them when we're talking about it, but it basically is analogous to an energy unit like watts for measuring electricity, and that's and again it's the sum of the amount of energy expended by a tropical cyclone during its lifetime, which obviously it's a vast amount of energy. But we talk about it for a season, that's the sum of each tropical cyclone in the basin for the entire season. And that's what those forecasts are referring to.
Yeah, more higher ACE, more energy, bigger storms, because if I remember, like 2005 had a high ACE, and of course we think about Katrina, but like that whole season was so active.
Right.
We had 20, and now it's like we're gearing up again.
Right. And that's what we're concerned about, is that we end up seeing some of these stronger storms. Hopefully they all stay out to sea. And one thing you have to keep in mind, this forecast, everybody's calling for a busy hurricane season. Yeah, it probably will be. But we don't know where the storm's going to go. Some people try with limited skill to highlight areas of greater concern for tropical cyclone landfalls. And again, the skill's very limited with that. I don't try that. But some people do. But right now we don't have good skill with that, so we don't really know where we're going to go there. Hopefully they all end up going out to sea like they did last year. We only had 2 landfalls in the U.S. last year, so hopefully they all stay away from us. But it's with so many storms expected, the odds of any particular point, including North and South Carolina, of being hit goes up, which is why I'm calling for a higher than average chance of a hurricane impact in South Carolina this year. So you need to prepare. These hurricane seasonal forecasts are not a reason to prepare more or less than you should. Maybe you could have a greater sense of urgency in years like this one where you think it's going to be really active, but you should still put forth the effort to get it done, because even if there were a quiet season, even if it were a year with only 5 or 6 named storms, if one of them was a major hurricane that hit you, it would be a bad season for you. Yeah. So you want to do your hurricane preparations with all due diligence, even in the quieter years or expected quieter years.
It only takes one, right? Wesley with a follow-up question. What is the cycle or period for the La Nina and El Nino events? Are you asking for time period? That's how I read that. Like, how often do they cycle between?
Yeah, I get the impression that's what he's asking. And it's every 3 to 7 years we see an El Nino start. So it is cyclical. And I guess you would say the period is about 7 years that you fluctuate between the start of an El Nino and then back to through a La Nina and then back to the start of another El Nino. But it varies considerably. We can go a while in a neutral phase too and not have either one going on.
Yeah. Well, I know those water temperatures out there, the season doesn't officially start until this Saturday, but those water temperatures out there in the ocean, the Atlantic Basin in particular, already at like August levels. So I hate to think what they're going to look like in August. So we'll have to, now is certainly the time to be prepared. So great questions coming in. Frank, did you have anything else you wanted to mention before I move on to the next hodgepodge topic for tonight?
I think that's all I've got.
Oh, I had one more thing on this. How could I forget? I queued it up and I almost forgot about it. Here are the 2024. Yes, the 2024 Atlantic tropical cyclone names, or that's thus to say tropical storms and hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean this year. Alberto, Beryl, Chris, Debbie, Ernesto, Francine, Gordon. Those will be the names that you can see on your screen here that we will have. Is that the same list you have pulled up? I'm sure it's, yeah, there you have it.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's a little chart I made to help keep track of things that I have hanging up in my office and on the hurricane tracking chart outside my office. And not only that, you can't really see it at the bottom because my name's covering it up. I don't know if you can get rid of that.
Hang on. I'm working on it.
But I also have the supplemental name list down there at the bottom because we might end up going into that this year if we end up using all the regular name list, which I've been jokingly calling that the millennial name list.
Right.
Adria, Braylon, Caridad, Deshaun, Emery, Foster, Gemma, Heath, Isla, I think that's how you pronounce that, Jacobus, Kenzie, Lucio, Michaela, Nolan, Orlando, Pax, Ronan, Sophie, Tayshawn, Viviana, and Will.
Is that how we'll have to say them on TV?
Yes, you'll have to say it. You'll have to say it like that. Gemma.
Yeah.
Hurricane Gemma.
Tony's on the primary list. When we get to Tony, be like, Tony! Hurricane Tony! I don't know what to make of that, but I guess I forgot this. We don't use the Greek alphabet anymore.
No, not using the Greek alphabet anymore. They decided after 2020 that it results in potential confusion because first you can't retire a Greek name if you're using it. It's kind of hard to retire the name, so that's one thing, and just having to use those same names year in and year out will end up making too much confusion. So they decided to do a supplemental name list like they do in other basins. The West Pacific does that as well.
What I hear you saying is, so we're getting a lot of storms now, and we better just have more names prepared as opposed to a contingency plan.
Right. That's part of it, I think. Although, but another thing to keep in mind, going back to those water temperatures, part of the reason that the waters are so warm is that we're in a cycle, a warm cycle of water temperatures in the Atlantic. There's a long period cycle called the Atlantic multidecadal oscillation that occurs with the water temperatures in the Atlantic, and each phase of it lasts about 30 years. And the last time we flipped from the cool phase in the Atlantic to the warm phase was 1995 to 1997, that general phrase. Before that, we're in the cool phase, we went to the warm phase, and then that's right about the time we started seeing a ton of storms in the Atlantic. Well, of course, now we're heading to the end of that 30-year phase, and sometime the next 5 to 7 years, we ought to flip back to the cool phase and see cooler waters in the Atlantic, which in turn should lead to a few decades of less tropical cyclone activity in the Atlantic. So that can't come soon enough, as far as I'm concerned.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Again, I know it's hard to believe. It is the time to be prepared. Hurricane season starts on Saturday. Really good insight, Frank. I'm glad you're here. I missed you on NPR. So for anybody who missed you on NPR, they can hear you every week right here. on the Carolina Weather Group. We're going to squeeze in a quick break. We'll be back in just about 30 seconds or so with a look at what Scotty Powell saw as the skies and the heavens opened up at Coca-Cola 600 last weekend here in Charlotte.
Have you ever seen what an indoor environmental assessment looks like in a commercial building or business? During a full assessment, we collect data throughout the building and compare the measurements room to room. We can also collect samples that go to a lab, such as the small cassette shown here, which will be analyzed for types and amounts of mold in the air. We follow up with a physical inspection, looking for moisture sources and using moisture meters to determine if any of your building materials are wet.
Go-ESG.com or 336-373-1538. And my weekly reminder that you can join the Carolina Weather Group on Spotify to unlock our Saturday exclusive episodes. Our Carolina Weather Group panelist playlist is back for a limited time, and you can get insights on your favorite Carolina Weather Group hosts. And if you are in the mood for a little early Christmas this year, Frank, we've just dropped again our Carolina Weather Group panelist playlist, holiday edition, featuring Jim Cantori. I know it's May. You know it's May. You've heard of Christmas in July, but have you heard of Christmas in May? Well, the real reason that these are being re-released is because this functionality is going away. So much like the Disney Vault, they are here for a limited time only, and they're going to be gone before June is up. So if you haven't already checked these out, please go ahead on over to Spotify and you can listen. There are a whole series of these dropped in between. You can even kick it old school with Frank Strait. We redropped it on May the 4th. Although for some reason, one of the songs is now listed as explicit. So maybe don't listen to that one with the kids. I don't remember which song.
Me
I could probably click it.
Now I've got to go look and see what songs on
will
my playlist have dirty words in them.
Tell me. I don't remember. I'll have to check.
And hey,
anyway,
Stormy the Weather Cat says hi.
Oh, hello, Stormy the Weather Cat.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. Let's hit the tunes here too as Stormy's back on the screen. There we go. Well, I don't know if Frank, if you and Stormy got to watch the Coca-Cola 600 Charlotte Motor Speedway last week. Scotty Powell and I were previewing it during our live show here in Charlotte last week. We were out of Freedom Park, but then he was over at the Speedway come the weekend, and the skies and the heavens opened up. They got about a little over half the race in, which was good because they ultimately did end up calling the race because of rain. And you can see the pictures that Scotty tweeted to the account. Our Carolina Weather Group co-host, Scotty Powell, is also the on-site meteorologist for the Charlotte Motor Speedway. So he gets to sit up there in the big box and, as was evident last weekend, clear the stands when lightning gets too close. That's Scotty's fault. Sorry about that. The rain is not Scotty's fault, just your safety. That is Scotty's fault. But the evening started off with a Memorial Day weekend moment and celebration. You can see here the various arms of the military out at the track for the special pre-race ceremony, including a flyover that took place. Former President Donald Trump was there. You can see him right about on over here. If you're watching with me on YouTube and Facebook, I'm circling him. Again, there was a flyover. Lots of people out there at the track. Lots of people who then by the end of the night were running for cover, Frank. I don't know if you were watching any of it on TV, but just like at Wilkes-Barre, they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the heavens just opened up on them.
No, I was behind on sleep, and I slept most of the day.
Well, I mean, by the time they called the race at like 12:30 a.m., I don't blame you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame you. So if you want to hear Scotty talking about what goes on at the Speedway, we have 2 archival episodes where we were live at the Speedway for the Roval race and last year's Coke 600. And then just last week, so just like one episode back in the feed, Scotty was regaling us with what happened in North Wilkes-Barre, where pit road got flooded and crew and drivers were out swimming in the flooded water. So Scotty's been real busy, and honestly, we thought he was going to be on the show tonight, but like Frank just mentioned, Scotty's probably asleep somewhere right now after 2 very long weekends.
Yeah, well, he does a morning show and which station is his?
He's at the CBS affiliate, BTW, WBTW.
That's right.
I did it like a Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
What was that character?
So yeah, he has to get up at like 3 a.m. for his TV shift, and so he's this is not exactly the best time of day for him to join us anymore.
Unfortunately not. I did get a question from Jeremy and Wesley who were watching, and this wasn't a part of our planned hodgepodge, but that's what's great about doing these shows live. It's a mishmash. You guys can ask us questions. We'll try to answer them. We've been off to a wet start so far this year. Are we below or above average so far for rain totals? So Wesley told me that he's in Charlotte, and I jokingly said in the chat, well, that makes my life real easy because my day job at WCNC Charlotte, we just did this story
social media
today.
And whatnot.
Meteorologist KJ Jacobs pulled the numbers, and you can see here, May by the numbers, we're at 7 1/3 inches of rain, which is a lot of rain, especially in a 1 month time period. That it makes it the second wettest day of the year was May 14th at 2 inches. Again, this is Charlotte. May by the numbers had 18 days of some form of precipitation or rainfall falling here in Charlotte. And over the course of the next 2 weeks, the precipitation outlook going into June for everybody is above average. So we are trending wetter than usual, which could be good news if you're like my wife and you have a garden. Now, I also know that Jeremy wanted to know what it was like for him, and I will say the Weather Service website just came back up. I've been trying for the last 27 minutes of this show to get it back up, and now you guys just get to watch live with me as I pull it up. So let me see how close I can get to you, Jeremy, because oh no, see, the website is still just kind of hanging. It doesn't want to load. Okay, we're gonna come back to that. We'll come back to that because as you can see, there's clearly the demoned machine.
Poor James, everyone's leaving him hanging, including me, trying to get a more reliable internet connection.
I mean, I know the feeling. I certainly know the feeling. Well, let's do this while I wait to see if the Weather Service website's going to come back, Jeremy. If not, maybe drop your Twitter or Facebook or email or DM us or something. I'll get you the answer, is my point.
You're trying to use AHPS, aren't you there?
Yeah, well, you
can't do that because it's gone. It's gone now. It's been replaced with NWPS, water.noaa.gov.
I was just trying to go to weather.gov.
Uh-huh. So,
are you able to pull something up?
Yeah, this is what the website looks like when you first visit it. But I
was just going to pull a Climo for like Conway or something. But
I can't remember how you get the percent of normal year to date or anything like that, like you could from AHPS. It's this national water. No, that's not it. Anyway, it's on there somewhere. I know it has all the same functionality and prettier graphics, but. This is river gauges across the country and their current status. Which I'm turning all of them off.
The answer to the question is it's very wet.
Right. The answer is that it's been wet. You get the same thing from Weather Bell here. This is the last 90-day precipitation anomaly, and you can see it's been wet over.
Especially South Carolina.
All of South Carolina and most of North Carolina. I don't see any below average areas the last 90 days, and there's a nice bullseye of wetness there over Fairfield and Chester, Lancaster, and Kershaw counties, and up in the northern Richland counties there, where it's been almost twice normal or around twice normal rainfall in that area. Then down in the low country, it's been around twice normal rainfall down there too, at least along the immediate coastal areas. Up in North Carolina, not as wet, but a lot of places are 1 to 1.5 times normal rainfall over the last 90 days. This particular view does not let us see both Carolinas. I should be able to quickly get my hands on that. There you go. Now you can see the Outer Banks too. It's been pretty wet out there as well. So I don't really see any areas with only 2 digits, which would be below average. There's a couple, I guess, in the interior of eastern North Carolina on the coastal plain, but even those are not far below average. Now, this is only the last 90 days. It's not year to date. That particular product is not available from Weather Bell. They have 1, 2, 3, 7, 14, 30, 60, 90, 180, and 365 days, but not year to date.
Well, you mentioned
you could have year to date, but just don't know where to find it.
Well, Frank will find it. I'm confident. Ooh, somebody just scanned our QR code. So thanks to whoever that somebody is who must be checking out our Carolina Weather Group merch store, where you can help support the store and keep our lights on. Matter of fact, money that we raise from Patreon for the merch store helps us buy lights and microphones. And that's why you were able to see and hear us hopefully so well last week when we were out in the field. So thanks to whoever just scanned the QR code. We appreciate you. It's on the screen right now if you want to go check out our hats, our mugs, and all that good jazz. Well, Frank, while you try to figure out how that new weather service website works, you mentioned the Outer Banks, and I wanted to mention we've seen this story several years in a row now, but another home along the Outer Banks has fallen victim to the ocean. You can see new pictures here on the screen from Cape Hatteras National Seashore. This is not the home you saw last year, and it's not the home you saw the year before. This is another new home that has fallen into the ocean. As the ocean creeps its way further and further onshore, we're going to see more and more of this. 4 of the collapses since 2020 happened within a 13-month period, according to the National Park Service. Debris from those collapsed homes washed out more than 15 miles into the ocean, this according to WVEC, who covers that area. So there you have it, some new pictures unfortunately this week for people who maybe own homes, or if you're used to renting a home along the beach. Yet again, I mean, just look at it. This is a repeated scene that we're seeing over and over again.
Yeah, and the Outer Banks, the problem with the islands out there, the barrier islands, is that they're just constantly changing. Every storm causes erosion and moves sand into an area that we don't want it, like on the highway out there. Which one is it, James?
Oh, NC-12.
Yeah, NC-12.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so it's constantly in a state of flux, and if you have a home out there, unfortunately, it's always going to be at a high risk of being damaged or demolished, falling into the water, whatever, because every storm you get out there just does damage to the land out there.
Yeah. It's an unfortunate trend that we are continuing to see. We are just about halfway. Well, I shouldn't say halfway through. We're about half an hour into our show this week. I did have some good news that I wanted to share with you all, which, we've talked about on this show at least twice, where we've had the privilege to talk to the developers of the upcoming Storm Chase video game for PC called OUTBRK. And they actually do have some new weather showcase footage that is available and has been published online. It does not represent, as they would say, their final product, but this is a really good update. You can see they've got this huge detailed world where you'll be able to safely virtually storm chase with your friends online. And we're bringing this up to you because they have announced a release date for what they call early access. So if you want to get in and play the game while it's still in development ahead of its final state, you can do that on the Steam platform starting June the 28th. Of this year, 2024. So I'm looking forward to playing it. I know some other folks are looking forward to playing it, and it's going to be lots of fun, I think. And we're going to try to stream some here on our YouTube channel for the Carolina Weather Group, probably on it or about June 28th. So if you're on the fence or you want to learn more, you want to see what the gameplay is all about, again, subscribe, and we're looking forward to playing OUTBRK when it comes out, the Storm Chasing Simulator on Steam, June the 28th. Scotty Powell in the flesh.
Hey, there he is.
Scotty.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Are you at work right now?
I am at work, yeah.
Oh, wow. Frank and I were thinking you were maybe asleep after those busy NASCAR weekends.
No, getting ready to do the Fox show here in about 15 minutes. So
just leave us on the desk. We'll just watch.
Oh, we can do that. I mean, if you want to. Sorry to be late to the party, but I was finishing up graphics and all that good stuff. You know how it goes.
You were working, is what you're saying.
Yes, one thing I learned in my past life is that graphics do take time, so it's perfectly understandable that that would make you late to the show here.
Yeah, we'll let it slide this time.
Well, I appreciate that. So.
We were taking a look at some of your pictures and videos from Charlotte Motor Speedway last week. You got time to tell us what it was like up there? And nope, he hung up.
Yeah, I'm going to try to cut
Oh, you just turned your video off. Okay, he's still there.
I'm still here. I'm going to try to cut the camera off. I'm having some bandwidth issues. But yeah, so the 600 was definitely interesting. goodness. It was pretty crazy to say the least. But
2 weekends in a row
you-
where you had heavy rain.
yeah, I mean, we knew going into Sunday at some point there was going to be a lot of storms develop. I mean, all the models had showed that, and it was more of that hit or miss. Like, does the line go north? Does it go south? And then as we started going into the day, the models kind of congealed that line was going to move through our area at some point during the evening hours. And
It did.
kind of told everyone to be prepared between 8 and 10 o'clock. That's when it looked like we would see the best chance. And unfortunately, I hit it right on the head. But unfortunately, we were still 150 laps from completion of the event. So we had a lot of rain out there, obviously, some lightning and thunder and some gusting winds. I will say it wasn't as bad as it was at North Wilkesboro, but we still had some pretty adverse weather. But, the thing that a lot of people don't understand or maybe don't really think about is the humidity with these storms. And so with the humidity still sky high after the storms move through, unfortunately the track just wasn't drying as quickly as we were wanting it to. With I think dew points were still in the upper 60s.
Yeah.
And so they would dry the track, but it just wouldn't get fully dry. And about 11:30, they made the decision to go ahead and kind of call it an official race since it was past halfway. Even though the rain had stopped, you were looking at another hour and a half to dry the track. And people had been there, especially our first responders and highway patrol and EMS. They'd been there since 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And so you're starting a race at 1:30 the next morning. It was taxing on everyone. And, obviously the goal is to finish the race. And, and I know there was a lot of upset fans, but, the track wasn't drying the way we wanted it to. And second, we had a lot of people had been there very early in the morning, and it wasn't the staff, the track people. It was more like, if you have 80,000 people leaving a speedway at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, you want your first responders, your highway patrolmen, up on it so they can get any issues that they need to take care of. So it's just unfortunate that it happened so late at night.
Well, talk to me about this too, because I think you're correct in how many people you had to safely get out of there. But also, the Indy 500 was that day, and it got rain delayed extensively up there. And then you had drivers, you had commentators, you had officials who were trying to fly down to Charlotte to, like, I don't know, was it a life goal, a bucket list item to try to be in 2 races in the same day? But like, they literally just ran with the storms. They just could not outrun them.
Yeah, so let me set this up for you. And I called Sunday a circus, and I don't mean it in a bad way. It was just so much going on. So you had a sellout of the Coca-Cola 600, which at least 100,000 people were there. That's a lot of people for a small space. You had the former president in town. You had Kyle Larson and his team traveling from Indianapolis to Charlotte. You had a line of severe storms moving into the area all at the same time. And it was just one of those crazy situations where you had so much you wanted to, the former president had to get out there and in the plane before that line moved in. The drivers of Kyle Larson tried to get in Charlotte before they got hit again. And then you have 100,000 people with lightning going all around. And it was just mass chaos, controlled chaos. But it was very, very crazy there for about an hour or so. But, it was a busy back-to-back weekends. I hope we don't have to experience that anytime soon.
At the end of the day, no one was hurt due to any weather-related reasons. So good job, Scotty.
Yeah, nobody was hurt. We were able to clear the stands in a record amount of time with the lightning within our detection center. Most everyone obeyed that and got inside. And so, overall, everything was executed perfectly. We just couldn't finish the race.
There's always next year or the fall.
Yeah, there's always the fall. And the good thing about the fall race is it's the Roval and you can race in the rain. So just can't race in the lightning.
Scotty, how did Kyle Larson do in the 2 races?
Well, Kyle Larson was leading the Indianapolis 500, which, first time ever in an IndyCar. He had a penalty on pit road that kind of set him back. I think he finished 18th. And unfortunately, as soon as he arrived in Charlotte, it's the same time the rain and the lightning arrived. So he never got to get in the car to turn a lap at the 600. I know he was very disappointed as well. So he was
I don't
pretty
mean
dejected,
to laugh, but like it was like
it was bad mojo all around all day for him.
yeah. I'm sorry that it happened that way. What are you gonna do, right?
So. But I think there's next year. I think he's going to try next year. So hopefully Mother Nature will cooperate and let him be able to do that feat.
Well, and with any luck, we'll get out there in the fall ahead of the Roval.
Yeah, most definitely. We will get out there and do our normal show that we normally do.
Yeah. Speaking of shows, I think you have one in about 10 minutes on Fox there in Myrtle, so I think we should let you go.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're in Myrtle Beach and you want to tune in, WFXB at 10 o'clock and then WBTW at 11 o'clock. We're going to be talking about the cooler weather and less humidity. It has been very sticky, and we've got some nice, cool air moving into the area. So I've been saying all day on air, if you pick this week to vacation along the Grand Strand, you've hit the weather jackpot because it's going to be sunny and 80, and it's not going to be as humid as it should be this time of the year.
Yeah, this applies to pretty much everywhere in the Carolinas, Scotty, over the next several days. Get out and enjoy it, because there won't be many more days like this before Angry Sun takes complete control of our weather.
That's right. Like I said on air today, in 2 weeks we'll all be wishing we had this weather back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, if you got any you got to paint the house or something, now's the time.
Yeah, paint the house, mow the grass, whatever you want to do. Get out and do it now. So
No Mow May does that very, very soon. Thanks for hopping on, Scotty.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to peace out and get ready. So good seeing everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Scotty. I got other sports news here, Frank, before we go, for all our train fans out there. This is really cool, in my opinion, because it's not too often that we get a special passenger train here in North Carolina, at least one that's available to the public. But the NCDOT has announced a special train that will take you from Raleigh to Pinehurst in North Carolina for the U.S. Open. So the 2024 USGA US Open is coming up this year, and Amtrak, NCDOT, is partnering with the Aberdeen Railroad. I'll get the proper name here in just a second, to run this Open Express train that will run daily between Raleigh Union Station and Pinehurst Clubhouse near the Pinehurst #2 golf course from June the 13th through the 16th, alongside that scheduled championship play for the U.S. Open. So again, this is Amtrak, NCDOT, and the Aberdeen, Carolina, and Western Railway is running this special train that will depart Raleigh at 7 a.m. and Cary at 7:15, and will arrive back in Cary at about 8:30 that night, and Raleigh about 15 minutes later. So if you're going to be going down, this is a special Amtrak service. We have lots of rail fans who watch our show because we've got an overlap, Frank, I think ourselves included, between trains and railroads. And it's just so cool. NCDOT is trying to launch additional passenger train service in the state to places like Asheville and Wilmington. Those are in the future, but this is something that they were able to add this year using existing infrastructure. Real cool stuff.
Yeah, especially if you both like golf and trains.
Yeah, I like half of those things. Is this your Angry Son?
Yes, yeah. When I'm talking about Angry Son, that's who I'm talking about, the Nintendo character that tries to kill you.
He throws things down on you, doesn't he?
And chases after you too. Yeah, it's just the sun, but it's trying to kill you. From Mario Brothers 2 or something is where it first appeared, I think.
One of those things. But cool. Well, I think that was a pretty successful mishmash show.
Yeah.
I think we mished and we mashed.
We did. Lots of both mishing and mashing.
Yeah. Thanks to all those of you who commented live with us. If you have additional questions or comments, you can put them in the comment section down below. We look at our YouTube comments after the fact and try to answer them, as many of them as we can. I know we've got some questions and answers we got to get to later because we couldn't get things to load, because that's the reality of doing a live show. But Frank, it was good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, James.
And I hope to see everyone else back here next week for another edition of the Carolina Weather Group. Be well. Bye.
Bye, y'all.